your local election headquarters. Here's Fred Childers with This Week in Louisiana Politics.
Good morning, I'm Fred Childers. Thank you so much for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. I hope you're enjoying the holidays with your family and friends. Let's get started. Governor John Bel Edwards gave his final end-of-the-year address. Looking back in this year and his 2 terms, the governor reflected on his time in office.
We are much better off today than the day that I took office.
Governor John Bel Edwards looked back on major infrastructure investments, reducing the unemployment rate and investing in education. The Democrat says that he is rooting for the next governor despite their political differences. Even with his accomplishments, Edwards recognizes the challenges that are still ahead.
We don't achieve the health outcomes that we would like. We don't achieve the educational outcomes. But staying the course, creating more opportunity, creating more prosperity in Louisiana. That is only possible through education. There's no other way to do it.
He says he has no regrets for his time in office, but some legislation that didn't make it through the process stuck with him, minimum wage being one of them.
I think it is a crying shame that we close out 2023 and the minimum wage in our state is $7.25 an hour.
When asked what his future plans are, he says he and his wife will focus on being grandparents for the time being. But he won't completely rule out a future in politics.
But I believe that I have some things that I can say and things that I'm going to continue to want to participate in, political and otherwise.
He has just one more official public event, his farewell speech in his hometown, before Jeff Landry takes office on January 8th. For your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
And looking to the new administration coming in the new year, Governor-Elect Jeff Landry announced more major positions in his cabinet this week. A familiar political face will be taking over the Department of Health.
Governor-elect Jeff Landry has chosen former Congressman Ralph Abraham to head the Louisiana Department of Health. Landry says Abraham, a physician and past gubernatorial candidate, recognizes that mental health is a critical issue.
And they are going to make dealing with mental health a top priority.
Landry says he wants to put more focus on getting health care to rural areas of the state that feel left behind. Abraham says that the legislature has been investing in LDH, but there hasn't been a major budge in the mortality rate in the state.
But the outcomes are still last.
LDH has the biggest budget of all agencies in the operating budget, coming out to over $19 billion. Lawmakers attempted to make some cuts to the department in the budget last minute, which led to an outcry by the department who feared cutting programs.
Look, we have tasked everyone that we have appointed to look throughout the agencies and the programs that those agencies administer, to look for efficiencies and savings.
Landry also signaled that he is looking into work requirements or co-payments for people on Medicaid. He has said he will not roll back the Medicaid expansion put in place by John Bel Edwards.
We are working to take people from dependence to independence.
Landry also appointed a new head of the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and the Department of Children and Family Services. The chief judge for the Caddo Parish Juvenile Court will be in charge of the embattled DCFS.
And it's no secret that we have a juvenile crime problem in this state.
Landry hopes in his position that David Matlock can assist him in his fight to reduce crime.
After months of searching, Baton Rouge has a new chief of police. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome chose BRPD Commander and Training Services Division Thomas Morse Jr. as the police department's new chief. Now, she said he brings a wealth of experience and a forward-thinking approach that will undoubtedly build upon Chief Murphy Paul's legacy. Morse said he will unveil his 100-day plan to tackle crime in the city after his swearing in. Louisiana lawmakers are trying to find solutions to juvenile justice facilities filling up and deal with kids continuing to escape. As we mentioned earlier, leaders of the Office of Juvenile Justice broke down their key needs to legislators.
We're not going to be able to build our way out of this.
The Office of Juvenile Justice Deputy Secretary laid out a few stark points of what needs to be done to help reduce the juvenile detention center populations.
What is happening in your communities that you're having such a high rate of delinquent activity you really can start developing some solutions to minimize that.
The deputy secretary says that there's also some kids being held in some facilities longer than what the Children's Code mandates, because he's found that many running the system are not familiar with the Children's Code. He says keeping kids in the facilities too long when not court mandated can lead to more behavior issues.
With training, it could have such a huge impact on the people that we have in these facilities.
Advocates also push for a center to be open like the former Jetson facility, where kids were assessed for mental health and physical needs to help place them in the proper facilities going forward and getting them care after they're released.
But there needs to be a comprehensive plan of how you're going to serve those kids when they're being assessed and evaluated.
The task force is going to keep digging into the overall issues facing OJJ and how to reduce juvenile crime to create new legislation.
State lawmakers will be back at the Capitol in just a few weeks. Incoming members were told to expect a total of 4 sessions. The first one is an organizational session scheduled for January 8th. This is where the Senate President and Speaker of the House are elected in the legislature. The second is a special session dealing with redistricting. That one starts on the 15th. This one comes first because there is a tight timeline laid out by the courts to pass a new congressional map. On February 19th, there is another special session dealing with crime that will last 2 weeks. The regular session will begin on March 11th, and of course, we will cover it all for you and bring you all those developments. A major broadcast program for New Year's Eve will not be making its annual trip to New Orleans this year. Some claim it is because of crime, and the governor-elect shared that sentiment. Ashley Hamilton has the details.
For the last 7 years, New Orleans has continuously hosted a live broadcast of Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. But that won't happen this year, and radio personality Scoot says that he's told that crime is to blame.
I mean, that's a high-profile thing to drop. And my source tells me that they didn't want to come because of crime, and they didn't want to tell people to come here because they didn't feel like it was safe.
Scoot's comments caught the attention of Governor-Elect Jeff Landry. He took to social media to weigh in on the show's absence, saying, "This is a sad reality of the city of New Orleans right now. No one feels safe." Scoot says he hopes that Landry can turn the image of New Orleans around and helping curb the violent crime in the city.
With Dick Clark pulling out, is this going to bring so much attention that others will pull out before we can successfully change the image of New Orleans?
Tourism experts acknowledge that the perception of public safety can certainly impact the decision to hold high-profile events in the city. That making the city safer should be a priority.
We're winning a lot of these competitions where we're competing with other cities who want this business. We're grateful for the commitment that he has shown to wanting to help make the city of New Orleans an even better place.
We spoke to some tourists about the city's crime problem. Here's what he had to say.
Crime isn't going to deter me very much. I mean, every day you're at risk of falling a victim to something. So there's nothing to stop you from just living your life.
Landry says he's making crime fighting in New Orleans a priority. And Scoot hopes with the governor-elect, mayor, and district attorney on the same team, it'll happen.
This is an area where New Orleans has not wanted to necessarily work with the state to make things better all the time. So I hope that this does manifest some real changes, because the crime problem here is awful.
Coming up, as promised, our second installment of a sit-down interview with outgoing Governor John Bel Edwards. We'll talk about the good times and the bad. Stay with us. We'll be right back.